And there I said the again. Uh, we are now on Facebook Live. It's Sunday morning, November the 3rd, 2019. And this is the online Gurdjieff group. And we're going to be continuing with external considering. And I found some quotes on external considering from Mr. Gurdjieff. One was absolutely fortuitous. I was looking for something in relation to something else. And it was such an important piece of the puzzle that lets us understand it a little bit more. But before we begin, in terms of the inner work, in terms of perhaps things that you've been doing with regards to identification, to the various forms of considering, becoming aware, I've tried to change my own language, and I've been trying to go, it is thinking, it is walking, it is feeling, or I am feeling my mind, or I'm aware of my mind thinking. I'm aware of my feeling center, feeling this feeling. I'm aware of my body. To use the language to sort of detach from those functions of mine, and not to be identified with my functions, not to be identified with my thoughts, not to be identified with my body, not to be identified, if my body is hot or cold, or if it's tired, to think it is tired, or my eyes are tired, and to try to use language as a way to step back from my body. There was a book called I and Thou that I had to study years ago when I was in the Department of Religion at Carleton University in Ottawa, where he was an Israeli or German-Israeli theologian, Martin Buber. And he talked about this in relationship to people, that we can have an I and Thou relationship with people, or we can have an I-it relationship with people. And when we have the I-it relationship, we dehumanize them. So we can see this in a lot of the political discourse when, all those liberals or those Republicans and throwing labels on people, turning them into objects, the I-it relationship. And he said we have to return to the I-thou relationship. But I'm trying to develop that I-it relationship with my own functions, with the awareness of my thinking, the awareness of my feeling, the awareness of hunger, tiredness in my body, to try to become aware and to speak from the I to the it, or to the my. So my thoughts, my hunger, my tiredness. That's just what I've been doing in the last week. Karen, how are things in Mexico? I guess it's a festive time for those of us, who are sort of squeamish, Anglophones and whatever. The idea of celebrating a Day of the Dead and wearing masks and skeletons and going to graveyards isn't really our cup of tea. But Mr. Gurdjieff said if he could do anything, he would implant an organ that made us aware of our own death within inside ourselves. So I guess in Mexico, they get to celebrate that on a yearly basis, at least once a year.
Yes, that's true.
You said it was festive, though. It's kind of a holiday, and they're happy. And
well, the tradition is that you make an altar in your house to those that have died in the last few years, or even all the way back to as far as you remember. And there's specific things that go on that altar to represent elements of the person's life, as well as elements of a general way of putting things together, Mexican style. And then also people who have loved ones who died in the local cemeteries go there and also decorate people's graves and spend the night there, kind of partying, getting drunk, talking about the people. So yes, there's the same sort of grief when the person dies, I assume. My daughter-in-law just can't get over her father's death, but she went to the cemetery where he was and put flowers on there and spent a few hours there, not in the most folkloric way because she's not really an Indian type, but it's very beautiful, and the people actually get so much out of it, those memories and those times together. So yeah, I mean, it's a dual thing. It's sadness, but making it into something more festive. I can't really explain it, but
Yeah.
that's the best I can do.
Mr. Gurdjieff gave an exercise for bedtime when you were lying with your head on the pillow. And he said, try to recall people that you've loved who have died. And he says it will help you sleep better. It will help the centers disconnect. It was just something he recommended for people to do. How is your work on identification going?
You're
Karen?
talking to me?
Yeah, yeah.
I've been working on identifying my reactions to things in a way, in a sort of a deeper way of when somebody says something to me and I see my reaction, what is my identification with that reaction? Why is that my reaction? So it's been kind of useful. I've been very much enjoying doing that and seeing a lot of things.
When you talk about your reaction, are you speaking about your emotional reaction?
Yeah, my emotional reaction. My husband might say something that seems harsh. Okay, well, I have a lifetime of how I relate to myself when he's harsh to me. I'm trying to get into that deeper and see where that reaction actually comes from. It's not me. It's somebody running me. So that's just a simple example, but that is something I've been trying to do more and more often. Not only with the bad, but with somebody saying something interesting and my reaction to their comment. Doesn't have to be about me. It has to be about something that I react to, and then see why did I react that way.
Sounds very good. Brian, how are things in Scottsdale, Arizona? You got to sleep in an extra hour today because you didn't have the time go back. You're looking more relaxed and not quite so 7:30 in the morning-ish. Now it's 8:30, I guess, for you.
Yeah, the extra hour is good. One thing over the past week I noticed specifically is like I'm starting to really like understand the word effort better. In views from the real world, he says that no effort is done in vain. And there's another part in the book in that first chapter where the guy says that no effort goes unrewarded. And so that helps me with, just like you have the major efforts and you have like the little mini efforts. And that kind of gives me some motivation to do some of those, the smaller ones. Like I've, keeping, like trying to keep a cleaner car, just like making the bed in the morning and like those little things that in my mind, I just tell myself, okay, well, all these little ones will add up. I've been doing the cold showers also. And I feel like, I don't know, just paying attention to all the little efforts that are done throughout the day. Having in mind that they're,
Well, one of Mr. Gurdjieff's famous quotes is, "He who does little things well will do big things well." And if you know how to make a cup of coffee well, you can do big things well. So start with the small and doing the small things well, which is what sounds like you're doing.
Yeah. I think there was something also about like being sincere with yourself. And, I thought that, if I can't even keep a cleaner car, how can I expect to, achieve these larger aims? So it's just working on these little things and these little efforts that I've really been putting a lot of attention on.
Yeah, this has driven me crazy at times because I do this big elaborate thing and I realize there's a little mistake in it. And as a Gurdjieffian, I can't just say, oh, well, I go back and I do it all. The number of times I've done quite elaborate things like recordings that I want to put up online and whatever, over and over and over again, just to get it right, because I want to do the small things well. I don't want to cut corners. I don't want to take shortcuts. I want to do it right. And I'm glad I do. But at times, I kind of exacerbate myself. Like, why do I do this? But doing the small things and doing all of the small things, making sure that you dot your I's and cross your T's and bring that level of, carefulness, carefulness. So we care about what we're doing. It's important, even the little things. How is identification going? Have you been able to observe yourself in states of identification?
Yes. I found with customers recently, I had a client that was actually, that was rude, and I was able to completely let it not affect me. And I mean, there's so much value in that for to be able to kind of keep your atmosphere collected during times when other people, are offensive or are acting out of line. And I mean, to be able to see that is, invaluable, really. And then just to be able to, and then you still are able to remedy the situation, but to do it in a calm and collected fashion is, pretty cool.
Yeah, you get the real opportunity to test yourself when people are nasty towards you.
Yeah.
And you can either act or you can react. When you react, it's your wounded pride, vanity, whatever. But when you act, it's like taking the control and stepping back. I used to call it the state of disidentification years ago, moving into essence, but you're really moving into the I, moving away from the surface of your being, away from those petty attachments. And okay, Angelica, how are things in Sao Paulo, Brazil? How are things in terms of identification, and any observations?
Yes. You hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Today was curious for me because just now, when I open my computer, this machine, everything changed for Italian language. and I don't know why this machine changed, and I cannot turn it back in the moment I do understand correct. But it makes me feel for a second not feel how much I was identified with this and with the Portuguese language, and it was so crazy. Everything are in Italian, and Mr. Gurdjieff speaks Italian now, and and I can do not so much until someone help me to change it. Okay, I guess it's a good opportunity for me to understand I can control nothing, and the machine change everything. And okay, we go now in English and Italian, and I will try to understand you. Okay, because I'm not identified with this computer. Otherwise, I was crazy because we speak different language.
I have my Facebook setting is Portuguese, but not my computer. I don't know what would have happened if my computer was that way, but Facebook, and it's about once a week I have to switch back to English because I have no idea how to do something in Portuguese, and then I have to switch it back to Portuguese just so, and it really makes you stop for a second.
Yes.
When it's not, you don't have the automatums for foreign languages unless you've been in that language for a long time. Language is such an automatic phenomenon that it makes you stop, and it makes you But to have it suddenly do it, you go on there and it's all changed. How did that happen? You know, does it have a mind of its own? We would think so. Is it trying to get me? And you can take it, you can just use it as a chance to observe yourself and observe your own inner reactions and to step back from those reactions.
Yes, for the first seconds, I was in shock. I don't know what is that now. But okay, makes me relax.
Okay, Ian, how are you doing in Portland? Did you have the time change? You did.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
So I got an extra hour tonight, but not next week.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm doing good. It's we've had a pretty long stretch of some cold weather. I don't know if it's going to warm back up again, but it's been pretty chilly. As far as the identification stuff, I had something pretty interesting happen. One of the places where I get very identified, I guess, with the body is when I'm outside smoking a cigarette. It can be very hard for me to not let my body like walk me over somewhere and sit down. There's often a struggle around that, and I noticed that come up a few days ago, and I took the perspective of, oh, it wants to sit down, so I'm not going to, you know, like I'm gonna decide to try and stand here and just stand here. And I noticed the pull of the body to sit, and I noticed I don't know, I've been calling it will, but I don't know if that's technically correct, but I noticed I could sense something in me that when I had my attention on that, it was easier to stand up, and then my attention would get pulled towards the desire, the need to sit down, and there was this like sort of back and forth between the two, and then I would sort of lock into, okay, I'm standing up now, and then a little bit later I'd notice myself like walking over to sit down, and I'd have to like catch it, and it was so feeling those two pulls was new and very, I don't know, that's I've been sort of trying to notice other places in my life where that's apparent.
Yeah, no, that's really, you know, that's a valuable observation. Normally we are in the it, and we are the it, and we're not even aware of that. This is something that I notice in other spiritual teachings, other people who think, you know, that they're on a path, and they don't have this concept of identification, and they don't have this, and the Buddhists to a degree do, but a lot of others, they're just not aware that there are all of these it components within them, and to realize how important it is to stop this process of identification, to not be caught up in the surface of what's going on within ourselves, but to be that deeper operator within, and to recognize that all these other components are not really us, they're our instruments, and to begin to detach from them. That's good. Hisham, Morocco, North Africa. Did you have a time change recently?
No, in fact, we had a time change, but definitely we have added an hour last year, but definitely it goes the year round, all the year round.
Oh, okay. So you don't change your clocks?
No, we don't change our clock.
Okay.
So, which regards identification, I found myself this week a little bit in a negative mood, but I tried not to identify with it. And every time I succeeded in doing that, I felt a little bit of happiness, as if I felt lighter, and a good feeling in the chest. And so I kept doing that, and the negative moods faded away. Also, in relation to people, I try as much as possible to take only notice of the words they're saying, the meaning which they are trying to convey, not their tone of voice or the way they are speaking or facial expressions, and only to take what they are saying in a neutral way, not neither negatively, neither positively, only in a neutral way, and to go with it only with the intellectual. With the thinking center, no, to think it, not to let it have an effect over my emotions. Uh, uh, that is all I think. Yeah.
So what is your objective? What are you hoping to achieve by focusing specifically on the words that they're saying? They say that the words that we say account for approximately somewhere in the range of 20% of our communication.
Yes.
And a lot of our communication is non-verbal, just the facial muscles and the tone and the way we speak, the way we hold our body. What are you hoping to achieve? Are you hoping to detach from the more emotional part of the conversation?
Well, for me, it is a way of working on considering, because I had a hard way considering people, how they behave. I would, for example, notice how someone is looking at me, or like maybe I got offended in the past, and so. At a time back in the past, I have understood that not every words or not everything that is expressed with the body I can understand. I cannot understand everything, and automatically I interpret it the way I interpret it. It is relatively always in a negative way. So I'm trying. So I have understood that I cannot understand. There is no correlation sometimes, or most of times, what people want to say, how they feel inside, and maybe how they behave. Maybe it is no only there. So I try to make a distance, and that has helped me a lot.
Okay, it sounds good. Yeah, just this is a topic that, you know, in Search of the Miraculous, it doesn't really account for a lot of the book, but it's such an essential thing to understand. And the more I delve into this concept, this topic of identification, the more I realize how difficult it is to teach it. It's something we really have to begin to observe within ourselves, to find those moments that we have lost ourselves. That's probably the most basic definition of identification, where we've lost awareness of ourself, that I, that individuality, that real self that lies behind the surface. When we are anger, when we are the words we're speaking, when we are the words in our head and there is no inward separation or separation of the self from the self, we're in a state of identification. And when you look at the mass of humanity, people spend their entire lives in a state of identification. They don't understand the importance of inwardly separating the self from the self, to moving deeper within ourselves. My big task this week as well, as using language with the, you know, it is tired, or I sense my mind is tired, or I sense my eyes tired, is to just realize how, for me, it's my biggest form of identification are getting trapped in the words and pictures that flow around in my mind. It's like I become my thoughts. And it's like I'm not my thoughts. My mind is thinking. And we all do it differently. So to really begin to observe this within yourself, to really notice this, it's such a key concept because, as Mr. Gurdjieff stated to Uspensky, the enemy of self-remembering is identification. And the reason it is so is because they use the same energy. Now, it's a little bit more complex than that, and I'll get into that in a minute when I pull up one of the quotes I'm going to read today. But I'm just going to share my screen. You know, the work, we do it for ourselves, we do it for mankind, and we do it for the earth herself. I wish to be. I can be. I have the right to be. I have the ability to be. I swear to myself that this will never be for my personal profit, but to help others. I wish to be to help others. This is to be understood as a vow. Now, with my live group that I meet with on Tuesday evenings, I did an inner exercise that I hadn't done for a while. And this is one of my own creation. It's called, I call it contralateral self-sensing. If you divide the body right down the middle, and then you divide the body across the hips, my right arm and my left leg are contralateral points in the body. And, you know, my right hand, my left foot are contralateral points in the body. And they've done research on contralateral points and becoming aware of different aspects of the body. And contralateral awareness leads to what they call the whole brain state, where the right and the left cerebral hemispheres operate in a state of unison. And I did it because a new person came to my evening on Tuesday, and they were primarily interested in anxiety. And anxiety starts back here in this part of the brain, and then it cascades and floods over into the brain. And they found that when we enter the whole brain state, and there are many different ways to enter the whole brain state. Alternate nostril breathing will get us into the whole brain state. Listening to binaural beats, so you have a different tone in one ear as another, will get you into the whole brain state. And becoming aware of different parts of the body will also get you into the whole brain state. So let's just begin by becoming aware of gravity. Become aware of the effect of gravity on your body, how gravity is pulling you down, how your sitting bones underneath your thighs, perhaps under your feet, are pressing down against what's beneath you as a result of gravity. Then become aware of the atmospheric pressure around you. Become aware of the fact that the air around you has a pressure. It's pushing against you. If you went up to a mountain, the pressure would decrease. If you are up a mountain and went down to sea level, the pressure would increase. If you go into a swimming pool, you can feel the pressure of the water around you. So try to become aware of the atmospheric pressure around you. Then try to become aware of the temperature of the air around you. And then move inside. Try to become aware of your own internal temperature. Perhaps the temperature of your forehead. Try to become aware of the difference between your own internal temperature and the temperature of your forehead. Aware of the difference. And then move inside your body. Let's move inside our mouth. Become aware of the inside of your mouth. Become aware of that majestic muscle, the tongue, The tongue is just this phenomenal muscle. All of the sounds that we make are made by our tongue and made by our jaw opening and our tongue's position and our vocal cords or just the air that comes out. Then become aware of the inside of your throat, perhaps the muscles involved in swallowing, and then move down into your esophagus, down into your stomach. Become aware of the inside of your stomach. Become aware of perhaps your bladder, maybe your colon. Become aware of your lungs inflating and deflating. Your rib cage, the ribs are bones, and there are joints on the ribs. And as you breathe in, the joints and your ribs open. And as you breathe out, they contract again. So just try to do this internal, generalized awareness of the inner sensations in your body. And then become aware of the outer or external sensations. Perhaps the sensation of clothing that is touching your body. Perhaps the air that's touching the skin on your hands, the skin on your face. Perhaps you can become aware of any jewelry you may happen to be wearing, glasses, rings, bracelets, whatever. Perhaps you can even become aware of the difference in the weave of cloth touching your legs as opposed to the weave of the cloth touching your torso and your arms. Perhaps you can become aware of the hair on your head or even any facial hair that you may have. And then just allow your attention to rest briefly for a moment. And I would like you to now become aware of your right shoulder and left hip. Your right shoulder and left hip. And then become aware of your right upper arm and left upper leg, your right upper arm and left upper leg. And then become aware of your right elbow and your left knee, your right elbow and your left knee, your right lower arm and left lower leg, your right lower arm and left lower leg, your right wrist and left ankle, your right wrist and left ankle, the top of your right hand, the top of your left foot, the top of your right hand, the top of your left foot, your right thumb and left big toe, your right thumb and left big toe, your right index finger and left second toe, your right index finger and left second toe, your right middle finger and left middle toe, right middle finger and left middle toe, your right fourth finger and left fourth toe, your right fourth finger and left fourth toe, your right baby finger and left baby toe, your right baby finger and left baby toe, the palm of your right hand, the bottom of your left foot, the palm of your right hand, the bottom of your left foot. And continuing to move down the right side of your body, your right hip and left shoulder, your right hip and left shoulder. Your right upper leg and left upper arm, your right upper leg and left upper arm. Your right knee and left elbow, your right knee and left elbow. Your right lower leg and left lower arm, your right lower leg and left lower arm. Your right ankle and left wrist, your right ankle and left wrist. The top of your right foot, the top of your left hand, the top of your right foot, the top of your left hand. Your right big toe and left thumb, right big toe and left thumb. your right second toe and left index finger, right second toe and left index finger. Right middle toe and left middle finger, right middle toe and left middle finger. Right fourth toe, left fourth finger, right fourth toe, left fourth finger. Right baby toe, left baby finger, right baby toe, left baby finger. The bottom of your right foot, the palm of your left hand, the bottom of your right foot, the palm of your left hand. And then reversing this and becoming aware of the palm of your left foot, or the sole of your left foot and the palm of your right hand. The sole of your left foot, bottom of your left foot, and the palm of your right hand. Your left baby toe and right baby finger, your left baby toe and right baby finger. Your left fourth toe and right fourth finger, your left fourth toe and right fourth finger. Your left middle toe and right middle finger, your left middle toe and right middle finger.
Are you doing your things? This is the same thing as it was coming on in the middle of the night.
Your left second toe and your right index finger, your left second toe and right index finger. Your left big toe and right thumb, left big toe and right thumb. The top of your left foot and the top of your right hand, the top of your left foot, the top of your right hand. Your left ankle and right wrist, your left ankle and right wrist. Your left lower leg and right lower arm, left lower leg and right lower arm. Your left knee and right elbow, left knee and right elbow. Your left upper leg and right upper arm, left upper leg and right upper arm. Your left hip and right shoulder, left hip and right shoulder. The palm of your left hand, the bottom of your right foot, the palm of your left hand, the bottom of your right foot. Your left baby finger and right baby toe, left baby finger, right baby toe. Left fourth finger, right fourth toe, left fourth finger, right fourth toe. Left middle finger, right middle toe, left middle finger, right middle toe. Left index finger, right second toe, left index finger, right second toe. Left thumb, right big toe, left thumb, right big toe. Left wrist, right ankle, left wrist, right ankle. Left upper arm, left lower arm, right lower leg, left lower arm, right lower leg. left elbow, right knee, left elbow, right knee. Left upper arm, right upper leg, left upper arm, right upper leg. Left shoulder, right hip, left shoulder, right hip. And then let's just quickly move around, become aware of your whole right arm and your whole left leg, your whole right arm and your whole left leg. Become aware of your right leg and left arm, your right leg and left arm. Your left leg and right arm, your left leg and right arm. Your left arm and right leg, your left arm and right leg. And we'll go around once more, your right arm and left leg, right arm, left leg. Left leg, or right leg, left arm, right leg, left arm. Left leg, right arm, left leg, right arm. Left arm, right leg, left arm, right leg. And then just try to become aware of a general sense of your whole body. And just imagine a line going down the middle of your body and become aware of the right side of your body. And then become aware of the left side of your body. Aware of the right side, aware of the left side. Then become aware of, the top half of your body and then the bottom half of your body. The top half of your body and the bottom half of your body. And become aware that within your brain, you're creating a complex system of neurons firing. And they say that those neurons that fire together wire together. So doing something like contralateral self-sensing is getting all sorts of neurons to fire together that normally don't fire together, leading more into that whole brain state of hemispheric synchronization. Now let's finish with the collected state exercise. As the earth is surrounded by an atmosphere, so too are we surrounded by an atmosphere. Collect your atmosphere, gather it, draw it towards you. Keep it about a meter, meter and a half in diameter around your body. Do not let it be dispersed. Keep it tranquil. Keep it serene. And in a moment, I'm going to count from 1 to 3. And when I get to 3, breathe your atmosphere in. And as you breathe out, imagine that something remains, some kind of emanations remain from your atmosphere and settle within you. 1, 2, 3. Breathe your atmosphere in. And then as you breathe out, imagine that something remains. And then silently in your mind, repeat after me, may results from this exercise be transubstantiated within me for my being. And then just slowly return here. I'm going to share my screen with some text about what we're doing. Whoops. Had we been sharing the screen through that whole exercise? It's hard for me to see what's going on with Zoom. People on Facebook might have got a different one. This is from C.S. Knott. This is from his book, The Teachings of Gurdjieff, A Pupil's Journey. And it was quite serendipitous. I was looking for this quote, a small quote, and then I read the extended passage, and I thought, this is the difference between internal and external considering. And The key to understanding this, I put in the title. In us, there is only one place where an experience can occur. So this is Mr. Gurdjieff being quoted. For us beginners, lesser freedom is a very big thing. It is not subject to our dependence on outside influences. Inner slavery comes from many sources. And inner slavery is another term for identification. Inner slavery comes from many different sources. It depends on many things, sometimes one, sometimes another. There are so many that if we had to struggle with each one separately in order to free ourselves from them, half a lifetime would not be enough. So we must find a means, a method of working that will enable us to destroy simultaneously as many as possible of these enemies within us from which these influences flow. Among these enemies, two of the chief are vanity and self-love or self-pride. In one teaching, these are called emissaries or representatives of the devil. And for some reason or other, they are spoken of as Madame Vanity and Monsieur Self-Love. As I have said, there are many of these inner enemies, but I have mentioned only these two since they are characteristic. It would take us far too long to mention them all now. These representatives of the devil stand all the time on the threshold and prevent not only good, but bad influences from coming in. They have a bad side and a good side. They are a kind of sentinel. And to deal with them, I personally advise you not to spend your time wiseacring about them, but to deal with them by reasoning simply and actively with yourself. For example, let us take self-love or false pride, which occupies half our time and half our life. When anyone or anything touches this, we are hurt at once and for a long time after. And the wounded feelings by inertia shut the door and keep out life. I live. Life is outside. I am in life when I am connected with outside. If I imagine that life exists only inside me, this is not life. I cannot live to myself alone. I am linked with the outside world, and so is everyone. Here, Gurdjieff went and sat between two of the Russians, Mersalukin and Ivanov, and he continued. For example, I'm sitting between Mersalukin and Ivanov. We live together here. Now we will suppose that Mersalukin calls me a fool. At once I begin to consider. I am offended and hurt. Ivanov looked at me disapprovingly as though he despised me. Again, I am hurt. And for a long time, I consider interiorly and forget myself. And so it is with everyone all the time. No sooner does an experience of this kind fade away than another takes its place. We must not forget that our machine is so constructed that there are not different places for different experiences at one and the same time. In us, there is only one place, this he said emphatically, where an experience can occur. If this place is occupied by one kind of experience and an undesirable one, it cannot be occupied at the same time by an experience of another kind and desirable kind. Well, Mersalukin called me a fool, but why should I feel hurt? Actually, for me personally, I am not hurt. Not because I have no pride or self-love. Perhaps I have more than any of you, but perhaps it's my pride that does not allow me to feel that I have been insulted. I think about it. I reason about it. I say to myself, if he called me a fool, does it follow that he is wise? Perhaps he is a fool himself. He acts like a child. You cannot expect children to be wise. Perhaps someone has been talking to him about me and he has got foolish ideas. So much the worse for him. I know that in this case, I am not a fool, so I am not offended. If a fool calls me a fool, I am not hurt inwardly. On the other hand, I may have been a fool. In this case, I should thank him for letting me see that I have behaved like a fool. In neither case am I hurt. About Ivanov, we will suppose that it gives me a dirty look, but instead of letting this offend me, I pity him because he squints at me. Something or someone has upset him, but can he discover the real cause? I understand myself, can judge myself impartially. Perhaps someone has told him something about me, and this has given him a certain impression of me. I am sorry that he is such a slave, that he should look at me through the eyes of another. This only shows that he himself has no existence. He is no more than a slave. And so with all of you, everyone is the same. I give but these two examples as a basis for active reasoning. Another name for this is active being mentation, active reasoning. All of the trouble lies in the, all of the trouble lies in the fact that we do not possess ourselves and that we have no real pride. Real pride is a big thing. Unfortunately, we do not possess it. Pride is a kind of measure of the opinion that one has about oneself. If a man has real pride, it proves that he is. Pride is also our chief enemy, the great obstacle to our wishes and achievements, the weapon of the representative of hell. Pride is also an attribute of the soul. By pride, we can discern the spirit. Pride is the evidence that its possessor is of heaven. Pride is I is of God. Pride is hell, pride is heaven. These two, having the same name, externally the same, are different and opposite, and no ordinary consideration and observation of them will ever distinguish one from another. There is a saying, he who has real pride is already half free. Yet although we are full to the brim with pride, we must admit that we have not obtained the least bit of freedom for ourselves. Our aim must be to have real pride. Only then shall we be freed from the many of our foes within. And we may even free ourselves from those two called Madame Vanity and Monsieur Self-Love. How can we distinguish real pride from false? It is difficult to observe and discriminate in another. It is 100 times more difficult to do so in ourselves. He paused and smiled. He paused and looked around with a sly smile and added sarcastically, "Thank heaven, I hear you say that we who are sitting here run no risk of confusing one with the other. The fact that we are here, which is at the Priere, and have worked on ourselves shows, of course, that we are empty of false pride, so there is no need for us to look for it." Resuming his usual tone, he concluded, "In any case, you must learn to reason actively. You must make an exercise of it. Each must recall some occasion, past or present, of hurt pride, and each, with the participation of others, must reason about it. Later I shall call on one or more of you to speak about his case, which must be actual and not imagined." So this is C.S. Knott quoting Mr. Gurdjieff in the teachings of Gurdjieff. Now there's some things I want to go back and point out. He said the freedom from identification is the first freedom. This is the lesser freedom, where we begin to free ourselves from that inner slavery. Here, the chief are, vanity, self-love, self-pride, or Madame Vanity and Monsieur Self-Love. Mr. Gurdjieff elsewhere warned C.S. Knott, or C.S. Knott put it elsewhere in the book, that for a normal person, self-love and vanity are sentinels. He actually uses the word sentinel later on. They are twin sentinels that prevent not only good but bad influences from coming in. They have a bad side and a good side. And he told C.S. Knott, it's later in the book, that for a normal person, you should never try to tell them to get rid of Monsieur Self-Love and Madame Vanity. That for a normal person, for someone not on the path, they are defensive mechanisms. They are a way of protecting ourselves from undue influences. reading C.S. Knott really helped me to understand a concept they talk about in hypnosis. They talk about the critical factor of the conscious mind. And when you hypnotize someone, the critical factor of the conscious mind drops, and they then become receptive to suggestions. And I realized through the Mr. Gurdjieff, and particularly this one special book, that the ego is a defensive mechanism that protects us. It protects us from accepting unwanted suggestions. It prevents us from being pulled here and there and abused and misused by other people. And Mr. Gurdjieff later in the book tells C.S. Knott, Monsieur Self-Love and Madame Vanity are twin sentinels, and they only become problematic when we step on the path. Then we have to work against them. However, we do this by disidentifying with what is going on within ourselves. So they have a good quality and they have a bad quality. And this is one of the reasons why one of the most basic forms of awareness we need when we step onto the fourth way path, this path, is an awareness of our own insignificance, an awareness of our nothingness, how we are just these puffed up creatures filled with ego, and it's all delusion and illusion and this unrealistic sense of self-importance. And this is the enemy at the beginning. It's the obstacle that we must overcome. And so he was teaching a form of active reasoning, how we can reason when we get upset to, well, you know, they're a fool. They don't know what they're talking about. Maybe they were listening to someone else, or maybe someone stepped on their toe earlier in the day and they're angry and they just look at us that way. To use the words in our mind to begin to come up with possible excuses for other people, to sort of let them off the hook so that we're not offended by them. Long before I read this book, when I was a student who had just become acquainted with the teachings, I was at York University here in Toronto, and I was at one of the cafeterias. And one of the dinner ladies, or whatever she's called, was really rude to me. And initially I felt this flood of indignation, how dare me? And then I said, you know, maybe she's got a small kid. Maybe he kept her up all night and she's dead exhausted. Maybe the last student along here just called her all sorts of names. You know, she's only working for minimum wage. She's only getting, at that time, it would have been something like $5 an hour. Maybe she has bills. Maybe she has trouble paying her rent. And I found as I did this, as I used all of these excuses and did this form of active reasoning, that any sense of hostility that I had towards that lady disappeared. And I did this over and over again. This is going back into the early 80s. I would be driving down the road and someone would cut me off. And I would think, well, maybe they're in a hurry. Maybe a friend has gotten hurt. They're going to the hospital, or maybe they're late, or maybe, and I would, rather than how dare they do that to me, rather than have my ego wounded, I engaged in this form of active reasoning. Now, this, what's on the screen now, is the thing that is most important about it. You know, when anyone touches us, or not this one, excuse me. Here, this one. Our machine is so constructed that there are not different places for different experiences at one and the same time. In us, there is only one place where an experience can occur. If this place is occupied by one kind of experience, an undesirable one, it cannot be occupied at the same time by an experience of another desirable one. So if we want to remember ourselves, if we want to hold our attention on ourselves, we can either direct our attention on ourselves, or if our direct attention is pulled away by our wounded pride, by what someone's looking at us, how they're talking to us, we lose this awareness of ourself. We just have this one place, this one section of ourself where whatever it's occupied with at that moment is the focus of our attention. And so we can allow this place to be occupied with identification, with internal considering. Either how could they do that to me, or did I offend them? The two versions of internal considering. Or we can occupy it with that awareness of ourself. And so this mechanism inside ourselves, the fact there is only one place for us to experience things and to choose those experiences well. So where is to be found their center of gravity? Moving into another dimension of external considering. This comes from Paris wartime meetings. Gurdjieff, there are three aspects that you are able to see in different friends of yours. Where is to be found their center of gravity, their individuality? Of your three friends, one has a center of gravity in his mind. Another is like a cow with center of gravity in his body. The third is like an hysterical woman. He manipulates for everything. There are three aspects of individuality. Study that. It is a good soil. To another student, what are you laughing at? The student, the hysterical woman. Gurdjieff, there isn't a better illustration for the emotional center than the hysterical woman. She feels everything, even what doesn't exist. So here, not just in other people, these exist within ourselves. Sometimes we are in the mind, sometimes we are in the body, and sometimes we are in our feelings. And, he describes the body with the word cow. So to think of a cow, the sensation of our body, it's sort of the way we should treat our body, like not a dumb animal, because a cow is actually a fairly intelligent animal, just not at our level of intelligence. And then our feeling center, like an hysterical woman. And, even getting emotional about things that aren't there. And I'm going to direct this, did we lose Hisham? We lost Hisham. To observe this when you're in conversation with another, try to figure out what their center of gravity is. If they're coming from the mind and we want to connect with them, we want to develop rapport with them, we want to externally consider, we have a mind. We have those kind of thoughts. To slip into something that is vibrationally compatible. If they are coming from the mind, to speak to them from the mind. If they're coming from the body, oh, I'm hungry, I'm tired, oh boy, I need a coffee. If they're coming from the body, to react, to develop rapport, to bring our energies into alignment with them through that awareness of our body. And if they're coming from the emotions, to observe them in their emotional center, to notice this is their center of gravity, and to begin to appeal to them at that level, that center of gravity. This is another in Paris wartime meetings. He who works becomes an actor, a real actor in life. Gurdjieff, he who works becomes an actor, a real actor in life. To be an actor is to play a role. Life is a theater where every man plays a role. Every day they change it. Today one role, tomorrow another role. He only is a good actor who is able to remember himself and consciously play a role, no matter what it is. So rather than being the role, rather than being one of those eyes that can come up and take us over, we switch the control inwards and we wear those eyes like an actor wears face paint and the mask that they may be wearing. Question, but how does one know the role one must play? Gurdjieff, you speak with this woman. You know who she is, how one must be with her, what she likes. Well, then do it. Interior, she is nothing for me. She is marred for me. She likes people to kiss her hand. I do it because she likes that. I am kind to her. Interior, I want to insult her, but I don't do it. In other words, I do not inner consider, interior consider, inner considering. I play my role, that is, I externally consider. So she then becomes my slave. Interior, I don't react. And then these are the stuff that's in quotation marks are actual words that were used in Beelzebub Tales. This comes from the chapter on war towards the end. And Angelica is just saying that she has to leave. It's a different time zone now, an hour difference. This comes from the chapter on war towards the end of the book, where he's talking about how we can get other people to do what we need them to do. And he was talking about infiltrating organizations and getting them to self-remember and trying to introduce peace and various concepts. And tickle, I love this word, so what's in yellow here are direct quotes. The white are my words. So learn to tickle their weaknesses. And he does use weaknesses, but not in the phrase there, such as their self-love, pride, and vanity. He says that you can get people to do remarkable things if you appeal to their self-love, their pride, their vanity, their ego. So interior, you are remembering yourself, you're aware of yourself. Exterior, you're focusing on them. Are they filled with self-love? Are they filled with pride? Are they filled with vanity? By externally considering them, you can say, well, maybe you really should be doing this with the organization. And, wouldn't it be great if you, stood up in front of the people and looked out and said, yes, I think that we should focus at the beginning on our breathing and come back to our breathing, or whatever it is you want to try and, to get people to open up to. Here he talks about another one. Learn to use one great secret of their psyche. This psycho-organic need of theirs to teach others sense and to put them on the right road. If you haven't read the book, the language is so weird, but people love to give their opinion. They love to educate you. They love to tell you why you're wrong, why they are right. They love to do that. So or I should have had this in quotes or in yellow, the mentioned particular need of theirs arises in them thanks to another peculiar property of theirs, when each of them ceases forever to see and observe his own abnormalities and defects, but sees and observes those same abnormalities and defects in others. This is, the New Testament, Christ saying, why do you criticize the log in thy brother's eye, or the mote in thy brother's eye when you don't see the log in your own eye? So this is basically quoting from the New Testament, that last bit in yellow. It's a human property. At a certain point, we do not see our own defects, our own abnormalities, but man, can we see them in everyone around us. So one way to externally consider is to ask people for their advice, to give people an opportunity to tell you what is wrong with the world, to give you the opportunity to talk about politics or religion or the youth or the state of the world. People have what he called a psycho-organic need to teach others sense and to put them on the right road. So in this, you play a role. You know, perhaps not a simpleton or a bumbler, but you play a role with them. And you pay attention to them. You look at them. You see where their weaknesses are. Is it vanity? Is it pride? You know, there are 7 deadly sins. Is it gluttony? Is it greed? What do they want to pontificate about? People love to hear the sound of their own voice. They love to give advice to other people. And if you've been in situations, someone gives advice, and you'll notice that part of you wants to give them advice, you know, to play a role, and inwardly not to consider and to focus very much on them. So these are different ways that that Mr. Gurdjieff talks about this. You know, so you disappeared, Hisham, for a while. I don't know if you saw this one. One has the center of gravity. Some people, they're centered in their mind.
Yes.
Okay, you heard that one. Okay, good. You know, when you're dealing with people and talking, try to figure out now, add this layer. Instead of just listening to them, try and figure out which center they're speaking from. Are they speaking from their mind? Are they speaking from their body? Or are they speaking from their feelings? Now, I mentioned, you know, NLP. 30 years ago, I was trained in neuro-linguistic programming. It's a wonderful tool for learning how to communicate. The initial intention of the 2 people who developed NLP was to teach healers how to better communicate with the people they were healing. Unfortunately, the 2 groups that picked up on it were the salespeople and what they call the pickup artist community, men trying to pick up women. And one of the basic presuppositions of NLP is the meaning of communication is the response you get. And basically, you know, if you're trying to lead a client to a certain degree of self-realization, to become aware of a particular problem they may have, and they do not reflect that back to you, that is not an indication or a fault on their part. That is your fault. You weren't communicating properly. You weren't saying it properly. You weren't appealing to them properly. Now, I briefly went into it just at the very end of the last meeting. It is a show, I guess. We're broadcasting it. The last meeting. As a hypnotherapist, one of the most important skills that I developed came through NLP. I took NLP before I took hypnosis. They're very connected. NLP, one of the people they modeled was Milton Erickson, very famous psychiatrist and medical doctor who developed a whole branch of hypnosis called conversational hypnosis. And he approached it differently than any other hypnotherapist of his age. The most critical thing that he did was to develop rapport with his clients. And the people who created NLP, John Grinder and Richard Bandler, studied this. And the most basic way we develop rapport with someone is if we start breathing and speaking in conjunction with their breathing. Now, you don't look at a person's chest, you don't even look at their shoulders. If you stare just slightly above their shoulders as they breathe in, you'll notice the shoulders go up. As they breathe out, the shoulders go down. This is a very interesting thing to do, to try with your friends. We're not aware of it consciously. This is real subconscious communication. At the subconscious level, we like people who remind us of ourselves. And so if you, at the subconscious level, remind someone of themselves, they're not consciously aware of it, but their subconscious mind is. For you, it has to be an act of conscious awareness. There has to be a deliberate and conscious intent. In other words, you have to disidentify with yourself, bring your awareness back into a deeper part so you can observe their body and observe your body. And so if you become aware of the rhythm of someone's breathing, and you can begin to pace what you're saying with the rhythm of their breathing, you will be breathing in alignment with them. You will be speaking at a more receptive pace, in a more receptive way to them. Now, there's another technique that they call mirroring, and it's said that we shouldn't mirror directly. We should subtly mirror or cross mirror. And this is if someone does that with their arm. If we do that with our arm, it may become obvious. And if it becomes obvious that we are mirroring them, we break rapport. But if they do this, and we can cross mirror and just do it with our left hand, or a little movement with our right hand, they move forward a lot if we just move forward a little bit. And this is a profound act of mindful awareness. It's a profound act of awakening that deeper part in ourselves, because we not only have to be aware of our own body, the way we're holding our own body, the way we're moving, we also have to focus on the person that we're talking to. We want to sort of be like a mirror to them. So they open their arms, we open it a little bit. Go to a coffee shop, a big one, where there are couples there, especially couples that are in love. You will see them moving and dancing with each other. They'll both reach for their coffee at the same time, and they'll both take a drink out of it. I forget what it was. I was just looking through some clips on YouTube the other night, and there was a clip, I think it was from, I forget what, but it had Brad Pitt, and he was in a coffee shop, and it was called The Coffee Shop Scene, with a woman, and he talked her into having another cup of coffee, and she put the cream in, he put the cream in. She put the sugar in, he put the sugar in. She twirled the spoon, he did it at the same time. It was a classic example of mirroring. And if you go to a coffee shop and you look at couples who are in love, you will get a sense of this mirroring. They develop this synchronization at the subconscious level with themselves. Now, within the Gurdjieff teachings, Mr. Gurdjieff, in that quote, recommended to try to observe where the other person's center of gravity is. Is it in the head brain? Is it in the words and pictures that flow around their mind? Is it in their body brain? Is it in their sensations? Is it in their physical awareness? Is it in their emotional brain? Is it in their feelings? And to begin to play a role and to appeal to, if they are a man number one, which is the body, a man number two, the feelings, or a man number three, the mind to consciously and deliberately pay attention to not just the words that they are speaking, but to their subconscious movements, their mannerisms, and to play that role and reflect it back to them. We're not conscious of these things in our normal state of identification, and most people live in the state of identification. When we begin to externally consider, we are moving to that deeper part of us. We're becoming aware of ourselves, of our own words, our own language. We're becoming aware of the other person, their movements, the tone of their voice, the speed of their voice. And if we begin matching them, their subconscious goes, I like that person. They remind me of me. There's an NLP exercise, which is to phone people up. And so you don't have any visual awareness of them. And if they speak fast and their words are punctuated with a certain kind of, or if they speak slow and they're deliberate, you begin to try to speak the same way they're speaking. It's a way to just focus on the auditory channel, on the words that they use, the sounds that they use. Now, within NLP, they also have this thing where you divide down the middle, and then you have two divisions sideways, so that you have 6 different quadrants. And it's not 100%, but most people who are right-handed, when they're accessing something visually, and this is related to eye movements, they look up to the left. So, what was the color of your mother's eyes when the sun shone on them in the morning? They will generally look up to the left when they're accessing visual information. This is for a right-handed person, and this is not 100%, it's like 95%. If they're imagining something, so can you imagine what your mother's eyes would look like if they were orange? They would look up to their right. So if you watch people, and they do this, when they're accessing visual images and visual memories on the left, imagined vision on the right, we look up. Auditorily, can you recall the sound of your mother's voice? We look to the sides, our ears are located in the side. Can you imagine your mother's voice on helium? They look the other way. So if they're right-handed, they look to the left. And if they're left-handed, it gets an even murkier. Then it's about 80%, and you reverse this. But within NLP, they say that you can determine this within the first 2 to 3 minutes in a conversation if you subtly throw in questions. When they remember something, is it left? And when they imagine something, is it right? And it could be the reverse. But eyes are up, sounds are at the side. So the eyes look to the side. If you're remembering a conversation that you had, your eyes go to the side. If you're imagining a conversation, you could have your eyes go to the right. And then they called it kinesthetic, but it's really, from a Gurdjieffian perspective, it's sensory feeling. When we access our sensory mind and also feelings, we look down. This is natural. When we want to become aware of our body, when we want to sense our hands, we kind of look down. And so within NLP, they teach you how to focus and become mindful and aware of where people are moving their eyes. There's something called eye movement desensitization, where people recall horrific experiences and they rotate their eyes around and around. And what they're doing is they're accessing all these separate parts of the brain. We store visual information in one place, auditory in another, and sensory in another. And if you want to access a visual memory, if you can't quite get the visual of it, look up. You access that part of your brain. If you want to recall a conversation, keep your eyes in the sort of at the center and maybe look to the left if you're right-handed, and that's how you access that information. If you are a sensory feeling person and you want to access some kind of sensation or feeling or whatever, you can look down. Now, they've noticed that the language that people use, the predicates that they use also correspond to this. And within NLP, they say people are either visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. And kinesthetic is sensory feeling. Now, in Toronto, apparently 60% of the people here are visual. You go to England, where you open your mouth, and the moment you open your mouth, people know where you came from and what socioeconomic class you are. They're very auditory. They're also very auditory in the US Deep South, where if you're one of us, you'll speak like one of us. But if you're one of them northern, and accent indicates in-group and out-group, and so they're very aware of sounds and accents. And then in Toronto, the auditory is the least defined, and the next one is the sensory kinesthetic. Now, people who generally are visual, they'll say, I see what you mean, it looks good to me, that's a bright idea. They will use visual predicates. People are auditory, and I'm fairly auditory. I'm very with accents and stuff. But I was born in Africa, lived as a small boy in England, came to Canada. Accents, that's kind of wired into me. And, people who are auditory will say, it sounds good to me. I hear what you're saying. And they'll use more auditory predicates. So paying attention to, it looks good, it sounds good, or, yeah, that makes sense. I grasp that. And, I can really sink my teeth into that. I can get a hold of it. And depending on which representational system we are, we will generally speak, not exclusively, because we are three-brain beings, we have access to all of these. But if you can notice someone's generally always looking up and they're accessing visual things, or if they're always looking to the side, or if they're always looking down, it will give you an indication into those parts of their brain that they are accessing. And if they use certain words, visual words, see, look, it's a bright idea. Or if they use auditory words, it sounds good, I hear what you're saying. Or if they use sensory feeling words, I can grasp that. It makes sense to me. That's something I can, sink my teeth into. We can get a nature into their mind. The person who taught me NLP at one point was a carpenter. Then he became a real estate agent. Then he became an Anglican minister. And then he became an NLP practitioner. And he talked about the fact that for a real estate agent, you want to know if your client is auditory or if they're visual. You never take an auditory client to a house near a highway. They will hear the sounds. But if they're visual and it has the most stunning view of sunset, you can try and sell them that house. So you try to figure out where the person is coming from. And as I said, this was initially designed for healers to really quickly get a sense of where their where their client is coming from. And then it got taken over by the salespeople and the pickup artists and people who have used it to manipulate others. But they are profound acts of mindful awareness. You have to be aware of your body, the words that you are using, the sound of your voice, the tone of your voice. And you have to be aware of the other person, their bodily movements, the sound of their voice, where they are looking, what they're accessing at that particular moment, if they're visual, if they're auditory, if they're sensory kinesthetic. And you want to reflect them back to them, because the subconscious mind likes people who remind themselves of themselves. So this is a wonderful exercise in external considering, but to do it you know, with the, to do it with the vow. You know, I swear to myself that this will never be for my personal profit, but to help others. All of this work is to help others, help the world, help ourselves. So you can help people, you can change their moods, you can make them feel better, you can let them teach you, you can do all sorts of things. But, you know, not for my personal profit, but to help others and to help the earth herself. At any rate, we're out of time. Thank you for being here. Think about these things. And, you know, there are eye charts online, NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. You can look up for the coordinates of the eyes, the different predicates that people can use. And it's a profound act of mindful awareness, awareness of yourself and awareness of them. It's so that's external considering. At any rate, thank you for being here. I think next week I'm going to go back and talk about self-remembering and pull some quotes up from In Search of the Miraculous and other places and go into real detail and analyze what was said about self-remembering and the process of it, because people seem very confused about it. I've done it many times, but I've never done it by pulling up the quotes and everything and going through them. So thank you for being here. Take care. Enjoy your day and practice external considering in whatever way you can.